This is the final session of our 6-part series, and we're so excited to have you today. We have a stellar lineup of thought leaders in customer success, customer education, and even voice of customer. Here at Brainstorm, we created the Sustained Success series to build a space for authentic, meaningful, and unsponsored dialogue around the most critical and current topics in customer success. Today's session, Building an Unstoppable Expansion Machine, Harnessing AI to Generate CSQLs that Convert, features Parry Bedi, co-founder and CEO of Tingono, and Mark Troyan, Senior Director of Customer Success Research at TSIA. We hope you enjoyed today's session. Let's get started.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today, Parry. This is a really exciting topic. AI is all the rage. It's one of the hottest topics in the industry. And, I'm really excited to hear about how you're helping customers generate more leads with using AI. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you started Tingono and, how you got to be here today?
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for that, Mark. I think it all started when I firsthand felt the pain. So in my last role, I was running a business division, and like any other revenue leader, I was really focused on expansion and turn. But when it came to expansion, I'll go to our customer success team, I'll go to our head of sales, and I'll ask where are our opportunities? And most of the times I'll get anecdotal stuff, right? Like I had dinner with this person, so maybe there are good opportunity there. So I quickly realized that, people are going where they have the best relationships, not where the data is telling us, not where there's really revenue potential. So that kind of dovetailed into me ended up starting Tingono.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, a lot of the path of least resistance, I'll say, is always a popular path when you're thinking about whether you're in sales or any other organization, but especially when it comes to customer success, you start to build strong relationships. And that's what, CSMs, for example, are. They're relationship managers, right? And so I find that very interesting. So in the industry, when you're talking to companies, what are you hearing in terms of the companies, CS organizations and how they're struggling to kind of get to the right folks or make sure that they've got the right data to make those decisions on who to engage with in terms of expansion?
That's a very good question. So I think on a broader level, initially, if you look at historically, CS has been only responsible for adoption, right?
Right.
But then came renewal, and now it looks like increasingly they are being tasked to do expansion as well. I think it's one of the TSIA kind of data points I read, and it really resonated with me where it said now almost 62% of organizations are responsible for expansion. And that's gone up from 10% only in the last 10 years. So that's astounding, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been incredible. You're right. As we look at these trends across the industry, more and more CS organizations are being asked to own, the end-to-end revenue journey for their customers, for existing customers. And interestingly, recent study that we conducted showed that 71% of CS teams have some amount of lead gen activity. So even if sales or another organization, like a dedicated account management team, owns the expansion motion, that CS is still being asked to generate leads. And really what it's come down to now is generate CS teams being asked to generate leads through the relationships that they have so that you're not always bringing in that sort of third party, right? You want people who have this continuous relationship ongoing. And most organizations, over 50% of the industry now, which is what we call a common practice, look at who works opportunities, especially expansion opportunities, based on the complexity of the opportunity. And I think that leads very much into our conversation today because historically CSMs haven't been asked to work on more complex deals or sort of dig, right? Really farm for expansion opportunities. If it comes up in the natural course of business, that's great. But to your point earlier, they need some direction. And I think that's one of the challenges is, how do CS teams know which opportunities to go after, or even if there is an opportunity there?
No, you're absolutely right. So, and I think you hit on it a little bit. I think like the first aspect is it's a cultural challenge, right? Like, let's not forget that. So it's
Right.
always, that's where we start. So if you think about it, CSMs have historically been tasked to be a trusted advisor, right? So we're, now what we're asking them is like, oh, no, not just that. You split your time and also, farm for upsell and cross sell opportunities. Um, for that, I personally think like sometimes we have to shift our perspective and, really think that, we at the end of the day are just one of the vendors to the company we are serving, right? So do they really require your constant attention? And then secondly, to be honest, it's a little bit of a narcissistic view, right? Where you assume that an executive would have time for EBRs and is really interested, or even like the QBRs, right? So we
Hmm.
really have to ask ourselves, is that needed? Because we set up a process and we gotta rigidly follow it, or we go down the data-driven path, which is much more promising.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I think this notion of a trusted advisor is a little bit overblown. To be honest, I think there are situations where that is the case, and especially when you can have a really high touch CS model. You can build relationships if a CSM stays in an organization many years and there's no executive turnover. Of course, that can happen, and that's human nature, right? But I
Mhm.
those are starting to be the edge cases. I think what people um, are really starting to see is you're exactly right. You want a data driven approach to these opportunities. Do you want to, not have that personal touch? No, of course not. You want to create a great experience, but you're exactly right. Executives at, most companies don't really care about your process, right? You're to your point. They're not necessarily incented to conform to the process that you put in place in terms of EBRs, QBRs, like you mentioned. And
Right.
I'll also say the other thing we see across the industry is not only is there not an issue with the conflict, if you will, for CSMs actually proposing growth strategies to their customers, customers love it. They like buying from people they know. So if they do
Yeah.
have that relationship, I think it's a little bit overblown to think that, oh, we need to separate the trusted advisor from the sales motion. That's not true at all. I mean, I always talk about the case of buying a car. If you buy a car from whatever manufacturer and you like the person that sold you the car, chances are when it's time to buy another car, you're going to go back to that person, right? So
That's right.
you'll build a relationship and still be able to have the commercial conversation if you've built a great relationship. But really, what's important is utilizing the data to make sure that you're identifying when those customers are ready to have that conversation.
No, exactly. And I, I'm like personally like big fan of data and like how it helps us. And the other way, like I think it helps us is that it allows us to break through this constant like or this mold we have set ourselves into where we think like one size fits all, right? We just assume that all our customers are the same. They value all the same features. They value like similar things. A good example of that is like the health scores, which we set
Mhm.
up last time, where we assume like somebody opening your email 50 times is a good customer, but like 10 times is bad. There's no rhyme or reason, but it's based on anecdote. So, the problem is that the data, yes, you can go data driven or initially you can set these rigid rules, but soon enough, you're talking hundreds and more variables, which can really impact upsell. And that is not possible, to do without using data science approach or really truly a AI data driven approach.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not a one size fits all, right? There's not one growth path for every customer. Every
Yeah.
customer is on their own journey, and they want to utilize your technology or services to achieve a business outcome, right? They're not concerned with, hey, we've got to check all these boxes.
Exactly.
From a CS perspective and from a vendor perspective, you want to push adoption, and there's certain features and functionalities that you want to make sure are utilized because you might know that those are um, will help customers be more successful, but the data should prove that out, right? That should not be a gut check. That should be the data that proves that out.
Right.
And one interesting thing, another data point we found recently is that in a study we ran, 10%, or excuse me, companies who have their CS teams involved in lead generation see a 10% increase in subscription revenue over those who don't. And so, one of the things that companies, especially in the challenged economy like we're in right now, they're looking for any way to increase revenue. And by utilizing the data that they've got to identify more opportunities, it'll lead to more revenue, from their existing base. And I think that's great, because what that says to me is customers are able to achieve their business outcomes and grow at the same time. So the vendor and the customer can grow together, as opposed to having this sort of, oh, well, trusted
Yeah.
advisor relationship, right? Who's focusing on adoption. But if you can utilize the data to uncover these opportunities, I think that's sort of the secret sauce, right? That's the 1 + 1 = 3 combination there. So
Yeah.
when you're thinking about, how AI can help power CS and lead generation, what are some of your thoughts there? How does AI really improve, sort of or surface, I'll say, opportunities for CS teams?
No, again, like, I completely agree with the point you made. And, having a process makes you feel good, but does it really drive outcomes? I think that's what we have to ask. And so, like, and then if we agree that data driven is a way to go, we know it's not possible, because we live in a complex world. It is
Mhm.
not possible for us to do that kind of analysis and really pick out the right opportunities, um, just by using intuition or as a human, right? To be very
Mhm.
honest. And that's where AI steps in. So if you take like a step back and you think like, what does AI really do? It could be both. Like today we have predictive AI and generative AI, but at the end of the day, what these systems do, they're really, really good at identifying hidden statistical patterns in data that humans may miss, and then use those patterns to solve new problems. So that itself is like a very valuable, tool in my opinion.
Mhm.
So if you consider three main aspects of a CSM's role, who's been tasked to identify leads, right, and uncovering other potential opportunities, right. So they'll do three things. One is predict. They'll have to anticipate opportunities before they arise, right? Otherwise, the person, your customer, is already on the phone.
Mhm.
Number two is they have to prepare, so have the right relevant information. And to be then able to, what I like to think as, pursue the opportunity, and then and pursue it in a fast and an automated manner, especially considering the economy we're in. So AI can help you with all three. It can help you predict, it can help you prepare, and then also pursue this in a really cost efficient and a very comprehensive manner.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, the 3 Ps, right? Predict, prepare, pursue. I love it. It's, the most exciting thing from a CS practitioner perspective should be that AI would allow you to then, create a unique business outcome, or help each of your customers achieve their unique business outcomes, right? It's not just one, sort of adoption play that you're running, or one retention play. It's really about helping them understand, okay, they might tell you what they would like to achieve. And you're, as a CSM, you're always trying to figure out, how do you, sort of take the different pieces and parts of your products and solutions and services and everything, and build the best mousetrap for that customer. Well, AI, it feels like, is that mousetrap, right? It replaces the CSM having to, you know, figure this out one off for every single individual customer. Now data is presented to them that allows them to make smart decisions and position offerings that are most valuable to their customers.
Yeah, yeah, precisely. And then, also if you think about it, like when customers to decide to make an additional purchase from you, right? It is seldom due to a single reason. It is, influenced by a variety of factors throughout their journey with you. And these factors impact different customers differently. So one size fits all, again,
Right.
doesn't work, right? So
Yeah.
you could, For example, like from a marketing perspective, it could be that are they watching your webinars? From a sales perspective, it could be how was the sales engagement? How many touch points did we have? From a product perspective, what features? And there could be totally different features which are valued by different companies differently. Then similarly, like, support tickets is one example I hear all the time, because sometimes a customer logging support ticket is a good thing because they are engaged, and the other times it could be red flag. So, what AI can allow you to do is train on all this data and then really pinpoint and say, this customer, this is a good thing because even, considering all these interplays, and this is where your opportunity is.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you're exactly right. So many people in CS try to build the perfect health score algorithm, for example, and they look at things exactly like you said. I think support tickets is a great example because a lot or high volume of support tickets can mean a lot of different things. It either means they're highly engaged or your product sucks and it's just broken, right? And I always use the analogy with our members of having kids, and let's say you have twins or even triplets. They are all born at the same time. They potentially look a lot alike, but they're all individual, right? And, they dress differently. They have different friends. They have different musical tastes. They have different talents, right? Just because you have two different children that are the same age doesn't mean that they're going to have the same experience in life. And that is true with customers. They're all on a different journey. They're all at different levels of maturity and things like that. And I love um, how AI is able to effectively create that sort of tailored journey while not straying from what you do best, right? You still deliver great products and services, but the AI just helps you be much more effective at identifying those opportunities. And so, when we think about the 3 Ps, I love the way you coined that: predict, prepare, pursue. I always think about, okay, that all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually utilize the AI for each of those areas, right? How do you, how can you sort of tailor the AI system to get you to where you need to be effective in each of those 3 areas?
No, absolutely. It's funny, Mark, you just mentioned about kids. I have 2. I would love them to be exactly alike, to be
Make it
honest,
all
because
easier, right?
it will be like, they like the same sport. At least I don't have to be driving from one to another. And I'm like, my life would be so much simpler. I
Of
wish I
course.
had AI system at home which can manage that.
Now imagine that with 5,000 customers or 10,000 customers, right?
It's precisely. With 2, I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta do it. Now, to the topic. So yes, let's the predict, prepare, and pursue. So let's start with predict, right? So what AI can allow you to do is answer 3 fundamental questions. So one is the what, the why, and the how, right? So if you look at AI, it always operates on probabilities and confidence levels. So if you think about it, every customer holds the potential to, for an upsell. But what you have to do is figure out like when is that threshold reached. So that's
Mhm.
the what part, right?
Yep.
And AI allows you to do that automatically. It automatically calculates it to tell you when is an opportunity is the right opportunity for you to act on. The second aspect is the why, and that is understanding the reason behind an AI's prediction. It is really, really crucial because then it really nicely dovetails into the how. Because if you understand why the system is making the prediction, then you know what to do about it, right? So if one customer likes to get their sticking to the support tickets, their support tickets fixed, and that is would help them buy more from you, then why not? So in effect, what you then can do is neither overserve nor underserve a customer and
Mhm.
provide them with the value they are looking for.
Yeah, and it feels like that would be really hard to do manually, right? Especially with thousands of customers, trying to get to the root of why someone is submitting so many support tickets. I mean, that alone, chasing that would take hours. And you might get different answers from different people at the customer, right? Some people might be
Yeah.
having a great experience. some might not be having such a great experience. And so it's very difficult to paint every customer in the same stroke. And, we see this sort of complexity when we think about segmentation, right?
Yeah.
So I think about, emerging markets versus, well-established markets, like let's say North America. You might have a completely different engagement model for folks in an emerging market versus a well-established market. Or you might have a different engagement model for, let's say, a government or a financial services client that are in a highly regulated industry versus those in, say, retail or consumer goods, where it's less regulated and you have a lot more variance between company to company. And so I can see how AI helps you become much more consistent in your engagement for each of those types of subsegments, if you will, of customers, but you're able to give them a much more tailored experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can drill down to like a segment of one, right?
Yeah.
Almost. And then also, I personally think it's not just about like, it doesn't even only work when you have thousands of customers. Imagine if you're working even with your enterprise clients, and but if it's an enterprise size deal, then it means that there'll be a variety of stakeholders. It's
Right.
not just gonna be like somebody who's swiping their credit card. So now you immediately explode there as well. So this one to end relationship would never go away, like regardless of you have many customers or you have few customers.
Yeah, and that's great because it's so much better than having some generic, play in a playbook. So many CS organizations think, "Oh, I have to build these awesome playbooks." But
Yeah,
you build a playbook for the most basic use case typically,
that's
right?
right.
You might have some risk plays that you run and things like that, but for a standard, we'll say, path guiding a customer through their journey with you and their maturity process with you, um, it's difficult to have a unique playbook for every single customer. And it feels like AI does that for you. It creates a one-to-one unique play, which is really
Yeah.
cool. And speaking of, sort of the benefits, what are some of the other benefits that you see in terms of, AI and how it can help with, coverage, if you will, account coverage and lead gen for sort of the, an organization that has, several thousand customers, let's say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, I think the point is really pertinent because um, when you think about like coverage, right? If you think about like human CSMs, right?
Hmm.
They can only have so many touch points, right? And they can only have so many touch points, so they're only able to cover so many, fraction of the opportunities. So if you have
Right.
thousands of customers, a lot of times you just ignore them, right? Or like the long tail, you'll ignore it. But it doesn't mean that there are no nuggets in there, right? There are
That's right.
always customers you can, get to. Now, what AI really, really allows you also to do is obviously, we talked about predict, prepare, and pursue. So prepare is like, gives you the right information at the right time so you can tackle this opportunity, right? And it is not like a generic information. There's information which
Hmm.
is pertinent to this customer. And then from the pursue perspective, I think what it like where it really, really shines, and I'm personally very excited about it, is the generative AI, which has come into play now over the last year or so. So what you think about there is that if you leverage these large language models, you know why a customer will buy from you. You
Hmm.
know what is their pain point. It can automatically craft the right talking points based on the preparation it has done for you for either internal collaboration or actually, reach out to customers. If you have thousands of customers with the right message at the right time, like, hey, we think this is a good thing for you and this is why.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's impossible to scale an organization to make sure that you've got human coverage for every customer when you have thousands of customers, right? Inherently you're going to have to segment. And what's brilliant about that is, the AI can not only identify opportunities, it can actually potentially close the transaction for you, right? So you're
Yeah.
able to, pr- um, put an offer that's customized and tailored to a particular customer in front of them and potentially just go ahead and close the opportunity, if you will,
Yeah.
without ever having a CS team involved. So it truly can be an end-to-end digital experience, all utilizing the AI, right?
Yeah. And then for complex sales, it can prepare for you what you should be doing. So
Yeah.
it is, in my mind, it's a really, really a game changer. And also, like, if you think about it, like to your, earlier question, we really cannot do this as humans. Sometimes I think about it because, this is like a massive multivariate analysis, right? We're
Right.
talking about. So where a human would have to, monitor and understand the intricate interactions between all these variables and then come up with what is pertinent. So, we always talk about customization. We always talk about, hey, what you really want to add value to your customer. They're looking for unique things. If you ask any company in the world, they would not say, yeah, I'm just like the 50 other in my industry. They
Right.
always give you like 10 reasons why they're different. So, and if you think that about why your company is different, your customers feel exactly the same as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, at the end of the day, every company wants a different experience. And when there's thousands of data points available
Yeah.
to a customer success organization, that's great, except that CSMs aren't data scientists. It's impossible to crunch these numbers. It's very difficult to do a massive multivariate analysis. I mean, can
Yeah.
it be done? Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, we talked about this. CSMs are asked to be relationship managers, not data scientists, right? So you really want to think about, okay, what is the best use of that CSM's time? And is
Yeah.
it digging through tons of spreadsheets or tons of rows in a spreadsheet to find the nuggets, to go after it?
Yeah.
No, that just doesn't make sense. And that's what's really brilliant about using AI is it can save time. And speaking of time, as well as I do, um, the longer an opportunity sits, if you will, the less likely it is to close, right?
Right. That's the golden rule in sales, right? Time kills everything. So here, what AI allows you to do is again be predictive and proactively deliver, the right message, the right talking points at precisely the right moment. So, gives you all the lead time you need to act on an opportunity either in an automated manner or as a team.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, right? You're right. Any sales leader will tell you time kills all deals, and whether it's an existing customer or not, that's still true. And having your CSMs not have to sift through a bunch of usage and adoption data, for example, to determine, hey, this customer's at this state, maybe we should have a conversation with them, right? That act alone takes enough time that you'll never get the opportunities through as quickly as you can if AI is utilized to generate or predict sort of future usage, which is great, so that then you can go to the customer and get ahead of the game and say, hey, it looks like you're on this pace, we're going to be here by this date, we should have a conversation about growth together, right? And then
Exactly.
you just lop off all this time that you would normally spend digging through all this data and having conversations, right? Human conversations, so that it's just there right in front of you and you can act on it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, imagine like since we all know we don't do it like
Right.
majority of instances, so there's so much missed revenue potential for you sitting out there, which we could capture today.
Yeah. And when you think about all of this data that's out there, I mean, there's so much available at most companies. What are you seeing for some of the best practices for kind of gathering all that and really creating a great customer journey?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question because if you think of all the signals you can incorporate into your AI model, where do you start? So
Mm.
I personally think you should avoid overcomplicating the process, especially when it comes to product signals. So in my past life, I was an engineer, and when engineers are like, for example, building a website, they'll try to optimize for button clicks, for example, because that drives a better UI.
Right.
And if you think about it, like as a business, you can't, or a CSM, you really can't impact that, right? You can't go
Right.
to a customer and say, start clicking this button because that will eventually mean better upsell or, better utilization.
That's right.
So, you really have to think about like, okay, what are the things you can impact? One tip I would share is we work this with a lot of our customers is if you're a typical SaaS company or if kind of B2B SaaS space, you generally have pricing tiers,
Hmm.
so, and then your pricing sheet also lists out like, okay, for a basic you get these features, for mid tier you get these, and for enterprise these ones. So,
Hmm.
that's a good starting point. That's a good level of abstraction because then, it's tied to your pricing, so you know the value. You can
Right.
then, start, incorporating those. And then also pipe in all your data, which is available. If you have Zendesk, you can pipe in ticketing data. If you have a data warehouse, more power to you. You can just bring that in and then let the AI do its magic on, okay, these signals are important. These are not important. That's what machines are really good at. So you don't have to,
Makes sense.
decide up front.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, we see this all the time with our members, in terms of building offers for their existing customers, right? So whether it's a product offer for expansion or whether it's like a service offer, probably the best example of this is sort of a premium package for
Yeah.
services, right? So whether it's support, education, customer success, even professional services,
Yeah.
organizations tend to have simple pricing tiers, to your point, right, for both products and services. But where I can see this going down the road with AI, and I think this is what's really exciting for myself and for most CS practitioners out there is, the day is coming where you can have a completely customized and tailored service offer or just offer in general, and not have to strictly stick to one of those three tiers, for example. But I agree with you 100% that keep it simple to begin with,
Yeah.
right? Work within the structure that you've already established because internally everybody's used to that pricing model, and your customers are probably used to it too, right? They've although they don't
Yeah.
see the price sheet, they're used to how you're pricing these things. So it's the familiarity is there. You just want to leverage the data to hone in on the best possible offer, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then, identify the right opportunities and then go after them. It's funny. I think like now within the last 6 months, it has like AI has come into prominence, but I personally feel like, we have a window of 6 to 12 months maybe where, some companies would take the lead and then be really, really ahead,
Right.
in, identifying and, honing in on the CSQLs and they will be the winners. And then suddenly we'll wake up and say like, oh gosh, what happened? We got left behind. I think people are,
Yeah.
the technology is moving really fast.
Well, you're right. It's moving so quickly, and the early adopters or people who are able to see the future, if you will, right? See a vision for where they can get with this. There's a little bit of trial and error with this stuff, but at the end of the day, if you don't jump on board and at least dip your foot in the water, you're going to fall behind very quickly. To your point. And, that's speaking of one of the interesting things to me is, AI's come along and become very popular, right? So everything, in life, it feels like is about being in the right place at the right time. And I think that the same is true when it comes to, you know, we'll say CS qualified leads, right? Because when CS has the opportunity to bring leads, whether they close them or not, but bring expansion leads, I think what AI really helps with is bringing that data to the forefront so that they're able to act at the right time. Is that something that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, at the right, act based on data, not gut instinct, and at the right time, and with the with the right set of information for the customer. So, there's two elements to it. Before, like we're talking a lot about AI, and obviously, I love this field. This is my second AI company. But, I would still say that, we still have to remember AI is still your co-pilot.
Hmm.
It's not on autopilot, and it's not on autopilot for CSQLs as well, because at the end of the day, the truth is AI is as good as the data which it learns from, it understands, or what it can see, right?
Right.
Now, there could always be an instance that, for example, the system can predict that this customer is ready, but your CSM is on a call and they find out the champion is leaving. If you haven't captured that data in from external sources, then that can happen, and then the opportunity is not something you should be spending time. So again, like there's always value and importance for bringing in that human element. It is your co-pilot, but it's an amazing co-pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best thing about it from a expansion deal aspect is, you basically cut the sort of deal review or inspection time down to zero. You don't have to go through a lengthy inspect. Hey, is this a qualified lead or not? No, by definition, it's qualified because you've given the AI has given you all of the reasons why you need to go, pursue this, right? So that gives you highly qualified leads very quickly. And one data point, I'll share it just in the industry in general that we've seen is leads that are run by CS cost as little as $7 per lead to generate. And those convert well over 30%. They historically convert at a 30 to 40% clip, right? That's by far the best in class of any organization within a company, right? So you should be incented as an organization to generate more of those leads because they're cheap, they're highly qualified, and they close at such a high rate. And AI just speeds that up at a pace that allows you to get more deals through the pipe so much faster. But there's still the human element, right? It can obviously it is your co-pilot, right? And that is true. It's just going to help facilitate that process and make it flow that much better, right?
Yeah, exactly. It helps you predict, it helps you prepare, and then pursue it as fast as possible.
So to wrap this up, Parry, we talked about a lot of great stuff today. How about, what would you tell me the top 3 things AI can do to help companies, CS organizations in particular, alleviate some of their pain? What are the top 3 things?
So I think the one that, we started with like the challenges, right? So one of the challenges you said was cultural. So I think the cultural challenge, actually AI is really good at helping with that as well. You won't think it, it's a little counterintuitive, but it works. So, for example, when we use generative AI, so our LLMs are specifically trained to generate messages that highlight like how customers can achieve greater success by meeting their precise unique needs, right? So it's not like, hey, buy this more from me because I have a quota to it. So it really takes that into consideration. So, it does help in that sense, like because it stays true to the purpose of a CS organization where they are actually helping customers be more successful. It just happens to align with your company's, what you call prerogative as well. So that is, really like the key point. And then I think the second place where, AI can really, really help is prove the ROI. I think a lot of times, we touched on it a little bit into a theater mentality, I believe, where we say, okay, I gotta do the EVRs, I do the QVRs, and I gotta do this, and then I gotta do the NPS, and I'm done. But these are active, right? They're not really tied. You can ask, like, so what do I get in return? So, and that's in my mind, that's an open question, but using AI systems which can predict, and you can really it's a very easy way to test it. Whatever we say, we're in September, you have AI system make predictions, train up to May and make predictions. And then you can see how many of them came to be true in September or not, right? There's no, trust me and, we will help you kind of thing. This is like a clear ROI here. So I think that's another thing which is really, really helps you, which is the ROI piece. And then the final one I would say is, we talked about it, it's your co-pilot. It'll make your team's job easier. It'll make it more productive and make them, in my opinion, like happier, because then they can focus on things which they just never had the time.
Right. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I completely agree with all of those things. It'll revolutionize your, thinking about how, best to optimize your team, right? And get the most out of them, how to enhance the good stuff that they're already doing, like we talked about a minute ago. And I think for me, it's really about, especially with particular attention to lead generation here for customer success teams is, I mentioned AI really helps lead to deal velocity and value. I think you'll get more
Mhm.
revenue in faster by utilizing AI to identify the opportunities and effectively qualify them for you. Um, it obviously helps with scale, like we talked about. How do you serve thousands of customers, but make it feel like each one is your only customer, right? AI can help you with that because you can provide a tailored experience both through engagement and offers to those long tail customers or the smaller customers in ways you could never do before just through human touch. And finally,
Mhm.
I think it's around customized offers. It's not just at scale, but you're able to actually get the right offer in front of your customers at the right time, right? You can
Yeah.
actually even tailor it to different constituents or different champions within an organization,
Yeah.
as we talked about, right? You can have a different
Like different
engagement
value props for
strategy.
different. Yeah.
Exactly. And AI can just help with that. You'll know which constituents within your customers need what type or level of service and engagement. So I think there's so many upsides to this. It's incredible. I mean, I really enjoyed the time we've had, Perry. I appreciate you joining me today. This has been great.
No, absolutely. And it's so hard to pick the top three, like because when you're talking about like
Right?
we're talking to customers, we can tailor this, and I'm thinking, but even small things like, okay, I'm going to CFO next for approval, then it's a different kind of value prop for them. Or say ops, it can help you do all that and do it really well. It's hard to pick three, and I really enjoyed my talk with you too, Mark. I learned a lot as well.
Yeah, likewise. Likewise. Yeah, I love it. This is great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for the time today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, oh, great to talk to you.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's session. We hope you learned something valuable today and that you'll be continuing along with us in the series. As a reminder, the Sustained Success series runs weekly on Wednesdays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern through November 8th. Head over to the Sustained Success series page to register for additional sessions. And in case you missed it, we're giving away a Nintendo Switch to a lucky series participant. You automatically enter the raffle by attending sessions, and each session you attend is an entry in the raffle. Thank you so much for attending today.